Hi, I'm Kelsey Stewart.
And my name is Nathan Maruso, and today we're going to be extending our mentor tips and tricks into activity logs.
Here you're going to see a picture of an activity log, and this is what we're going to be talking about today. So if you've used these before, maybe we'll teach you something you don't know, and if you haven't seen these before, they're incredibly helpful. The first thing you need to do is find the activity log, and this can be done. You open your homeroom participants and then select a specific student. You're going to need to click to expand the full profile in order to get the actual activity log. On the left hand side of the screen, under activities logs, you're going to click all logs, and that's going to bring you to this screen.
Okay, a few key things about the activity log screen. One, in the top left corner, you're going to see a drop down box. We're going to make sure that that's on legacy log. It should be set to the default, but let's just make sure that it is on legacy log. At the top, check for the name of the student. As in Moodle, sometimes it loads slowly and leaves the last student leaving their data on the screen. You would like to make sure that the student name will be at the top of the correct, and it is the correct student's name. Lastly, look at the left-hand side on the bar for hits. Just because a bar is long does not mean that doesn't mean it constitutes many hits. The scale is set to how many total hits that person has. So if they have a few amount of hits, it might not register. It might register as a long bar, but not really that many hits. So just make sure that the scale is to what you believe it is.
And next, underneath that graph, you're going to see a breakdown of what that graph is showing you. So the first column you're going to see is the time. It'll show you what time of day the student's working, and each time they shift onto a different screen, you'll see an updated time log. Then you're going to be able to see what class they're in. This will let you follow them, see if they're opening up and going to their live classes, see if they're attending the right things, or if they're just logging in. You'll see front page. If that's all you see, then they're not really going further into their classwork. Next, you'll be able to look and see what they're doing. We'll go a little bit more into detail in that a little bit later on the PowerPoint, but you'll see that under event name and then also the description. And then you can find your student and where they're working by looking at that IP address, and you're able to actually search the IP addresses to find out exactly where they are.
Okay, using the activity logs to find connections. Let's talk about what we are using this for with parents. So many times when I contact this parent, as the mentor, I'll be asking questions as far as to check their progress. Sometimes I hear things such as, I see my student on the computer all day, I know he's working, or he's logging in from the library or the McDonald's, or he can't understand and he needs more help. What we use the activity logs is not a way to prove parents wrong or prove students wrong when they say that they've done something. It's just a way for us to verify the information of how long they're going to be working on an assignment, where they are. So I would never use as a mentor these activity logs as a way to prove something, proving parents wrong or proving a student wrong. We just use it to verify the information, and that's the context in which I always use it when I'm discussing it with parents.
And then to find those connections with students, we can use it in a couple different ways. It can really let us understand a little bit more of their work patterns. So for example, if you see they're working at 2 a.m., that's not only a signal to you that maybe they have a job or they have something going on at home that lets them be awake at 2 a.m., but it also means if you want to make a connection with them, don't be calling them at 8 in the morning. They probably won't answer. If they do, they'll be groggy. Wait a little bit later so that you can have a real conversation with them when they're well rested. You can also sort of see what they're working in. So maybe you notice they're spending a lot of time in their civics class, but they're never going into their bio class. This might be a signal that they need help in bio or they're uncomfortable in bio. Even in some cases, it might be that they don't know they have a class. Certain classes change halfway through the year. They might not realize that they all of a sudden have career studies as a class. And you can say, listen, I see you've been hitting up all your classes, but don't forget this quarter you actually have career studies or a variety of other classes that change. And then it's also a signal sometimes you might notice, okay, it's snowing and the center shut down and the student's not logging in. That could be because they don't have internet at home and they need your help to find another source of internet. Maybe a friend's house, a grandma's house, McDonald's, whatever it is. But that's a sign, okay, let me call them. They haven't logged in yet today. Let's see what's going on. And This is also a way that you can give your student props. If you notice that they have been rushing through assignments and submitting them after just a minute, you guys have a conversation. Listen, take your time, watch the full video, and then do the best you can on the attempt. This is a way for you to check that, and without a conversation, you can just BBIM them and say, hey, I noticed that you watched the whole video. Great job. I'm glad to see you taking your time. I hope you're taking notes. And so it can be positive, too. It's not, like Nate said, it's not a gotcha. You don't necessarily want to say, listen, I know you're lying. You said you did all your work, but listen, I can tell you're not. But you might want to say something more gentle along the lines of, hey, like, our computer is not registering that work that you're doing. Maybe, if there's a glitch in the system, we need to file a help desk ticket. And then sometimes the student will say, oh, well, maybe I should, I think it's okay, let me try again today, and then it'll go from there. So this is a really good way, just, every time you're calling parents, pull it open. It's a great tool to use for that and with your kids.
Another key function of using these activity logs is the IP address. It is more helpful than you think. Listed here are the IP addresses for all of the centers at AHCCS. What I see the most important part of an IP address is just the identification of where the student is working. I know that might seem obvious, but many times we have students that are traveling. For instance, last week I had a student that is in the Poconos on vacation. The student didn't let me know, but I was able to see that, oh, this is not a public library, this is not a center, and I was able to get in touch with the student and say, okay, yes, we're logging in from the network here up at our mountain house. So that was basically a very good identifying factor for me. IP addresses can also, like I say, further our verification towards saying, verifying where a student is working. Oftentimes a student will be doing work from a remote location, maybe not in the house where they live. So we can say, okay, well, maybe that student is working here today, or talking to the parent. I've also had parents checking to see, has a student been in the center lately? Well, no, I haven't seen that student in 2 months, and the IP address is here to show that. If you see oftentimes that there is a 0 listed, so if you see zeros listed next to the IP address for that student, it means that there's actually no work being completed. That is what the zeros will mean. Lastly, where are we finding the IP addresses? Revert back to slide 5, all the way to the right-hand side. That's going to show that where the IP address is located.
And then finally, what we're calling the good stuff is, how do we know, looking at this activity log, we can see they're going through their classes, but how do we know when they're submitting the work and actually getting a grade for what they're doing? This is actually a shout out for Susan, who found out and let us know these are the actual phrases we're looking for. So under event name, you're going to look for things that say either quiz review or lesson end. And those are both signals, okay, the student finished an assignment. They opened it up, they completed it, and they submitted it. If you click on those links, those are live links in the activity log, and you'll see in more detail how much time they spent, what grade they received, things like that. So thanks, Susan, for that tip.
Any questions? Please feel free to get a hold of us via BBIM, our phones, or email. We'll be available after the PD today, and we'll put this up as a resource on the Friday morning PD resources.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.